So, back for another VGC guide, and this time we are looking at Ceruledge. Definitely my favourite of the two between it and Armor Rouge, but unfortunately Armor Rouge just seems way better. Bit of a shame, because Ceruledge is one of the coolest designs we've ever had in a Pokemon. I really, really like it. It might be one of my favourites, but unfortunately it is only pretty reasonable. It's not busted or anything. It's still got a very good attack in Bitter Blade, so it is got to be the strongest recovery move that we've had before. Like Oblivion Wing was only 80, and this is 90 that recovers 50% of the damage dealt. So a bit of a buff there, and with 125 attack, it is going to be doing some pretty reasonable damage as well. Its defense is somewhat lacking. That's why I put so much defense into it, so that it can survive a Garchomp Earthquake. You might have seen a theme if you've watched some of my other guides. That is a benchmark that I go for ground weak Pokemon. And also you can boost up even further with Bulk Up. So the nice thing about this Bulk Up Pokemon is that it does have a attacking recovery. A lot of Bulk Up Pokemon only have access to Drain Punch, and that is still pretty reasonable, but 75 base power against 90 base power is a significant increase. Like 90 will do a lot of damage. So this Bitter Blade being 90 power is going to help out the Bulk Up set very well. You could definitely just drop Bulk Up and just accept. That's not how you spell sword. You could just drop Bulk Up and just accept you're not going to be as defensive and just go for the +2 so that you are technically recovering more HP because you're doing more damage because you're +2 rather than +1. So that is entirely fine as well. That would come down to a personal preference. So pick between Bulk Up and Swords Dance. Both are fine. I would definitely have Citrus Berry on this set though, because it's somewhat bulky. The Citrus Berry will help out with that bulk. I do tend towards the Citrus Berry over the Super Berries because going at 50% rather than at 25% I don't think is worth the extra 8% of recovery. So you're trading effectively 25% for 8%, and that's not worth it in my opinion. If you're running a Citrus Berry, definitely have an even number of HP, so if you get, I was going to say Super Fangs, this one can't, but if you get Ruinations, if Paradox Pokemon, not Paradox, Legends, if Legends are allowed in the format, we don't know yet, we don't have the format, I'm speculating at this point, but if Ruination is the thing, then definitely have an even number of HP with your Citrus Berry. It still gets the same abilities as Armor Rouge does, so it gets Flash Fire and Weak Armor. Flash Fire is definitely the better of the two on the Bulk Up set. On the Swords Dance set, you could definitely get away with Weak Armor a bit more, because you could much more easily go for a sweep if you go for the Swords Dance and then go for the Weak Armor boosts. You could do the same thing as Armor Rouge, so that's where you beat up yourself and get a weakness policy in Weak Armor, but the only awkward thing about that is you're physical and you could get intimidated, and the sweep is a bit more difficult. So you could still go for that as well. That's perfectly fine, but I would recommend going with that for Armor Rouge rather than Ceruledge, especially on top of the fact that Armor Rouge gets spread attacks so that it can just get +2 and KO both things. This would only be able to KO one thing, so a bit less, a bit too much of a commitment, I think, for the weakness policy, Weak Armor, but feel free to try it out if you want. Bitter Blade, Shadow Sneak is all you need on this set. Shadow Sneak is the priority that's going to be nice. Bitter Blade is your recovery. Bulk Up / Swords Dance, and then you should have Protect as your last slot. So yeah, outspeed Dragon Point on the Tailwinds. You've probably seen that before. And survives Garchomp Earthquake, bit of attack, and then just tiny bit of special defense. So that's what that Ceruledge is going for. That is probably the one I would start with if I was going to use Ceruledge. This is what I would use otherwise, the choice bands. So make use of the basically guaranteed recovery from the Bitter Blades that's going to recover a lot more because you're doing more damage with the choice band. That was the same logic of the Swords Dance over the Bulk Up. You'll recover more because you're doing more damage. So that's the idea behind the Ceruledge. With the choice band, you don't need as much attack investment. You're still going to do significant damage, and then you do have space for 2 more attacks. You've got Bitter Blade, you've got Shadow Sneak to keep with the same 2 attacks, but then Phantom Force and Shadow Claw, I would say, were probably going to be the best 2 ways to round it out. You definitely could drop Phantom Force for Shadow Claw, but the drop in power of 20 against 90 will be noticeable. So I would still recommend Phantom Force, even though it is still super awkward with the charge up turn. But we've seen Dragapult be effective with it before. Maybe that's because it's so fast and it breaks the Protect, which Ceruledge still very much can do as well. And with the choice band, I think it's a bit more justifiable to go a bit faster as well. This will outspeed a T-Tar, Adamant T-Tar, so that you could close combat it. There's no point outspeeding a T-Tar with this Ceruledge because you're just going to lose to it. Like, Bitter Blade and Shadow Sneak can't touch it, so but this one can because you have space for close combat, so that you'll be able to actually outspeed at that point. You could justify running an Assault Vest on this Ceruledge. That would be pretty reasonable as well, and if you're bulky enough to be able to survive things, then you recover up, and then you'd be able to recover and make yourself even more bulky, or increase survivability is the one I'm going for there. That would be fine as well. Especially because I've still got so much defense on this Ceruledge. The Assault Vest will stack pretty nicely with these moves as well, so that would be fine as well. So yeah, that is Ceruledge. Bit worse than Armor Rouge, unfortunately, but still pretty justifiable on any team.